Live from the TV30 studio, here is Jim Schneider.
Well, hi and welcome to inFocus. We're glad that you've joined us for our broadcast here tonight. Things are just a little bit different for TV30. Many of you are aware that we have recently made a transition from standard definition television to HD, and a great enhancement to our picture and quality for this station. But along with that comes some other transitions that are going on. We are not able to do a live inFocus at this program at this time, so this program is pre-recorded. But we're working on the relocation of our studios right now, and we appreciate your prayers for this. But friends, we've got some very important issues to talk about, so we're thankful that you've joined us for this special broadcast tonight. I really believe our nation is at a crossroads right now. We're going to go one direction or another as a nation, and some have called it a very grave situation that we're in right now as a nation, really a turning point one way or the other. Next week, Tuesday, we face an election, and it is very important that we understand the issues that are before us here, the ramifications of this election, and early voting has also begun. So we'll be talking about early voting tonight. So we'll be discussing this election, what's at stake. We'll be talking about the mechanics of it as well, and encourage you to stay with us here for this this time here this evening. It's a privilege of ours to have with us Daniel Degner, President of Wisconsin Family Council. Daniel, good to have you here.
Thanks for having us, Jim.
And Sam Krebs is with us, Legislative Director for Wisconsin Family Action. Sam, good to have you here.
Thanks, Jim.
Great. So many of you are aware, Jelaine Appling had been with us for many years here on inFocus, serving as President of Wisconsin Family Council, now President Emeritus, and she is also very much involved right now in mentoring individuals to get out and vote and participate in the election. But for many of our viewers, they've not met you two men before. So if you would, Daniel, begin telling us a little bit about yourself and about your position at Wisconsin Family Council.
Yeah, thanks so much for having us, Jim. And just a little bit about myself. So I joined the staff of Wisconsin Family Council in 2020, where I served as our director of our Church Ambassador Network. And it's been a joy these last 4 years to serve under the leadership of Jelaine, to get the mentorship from her and just the experience to be able to understand how we can serve our church as well, and also understand how we can bring ministry to the Capitol building. And earlier this summer, I stepped in as the interim president of the organization. In September, our board offered me and extended an offer for me to serve as the long-term permanent president. And it's a humbling, it's an honor for me to serve in that capacity, but I'm very thankful to have a friend and a mentor like Jelaine Appling that I can talk to on a daily basis.
Right, and that mentoring continues on, and she's with a new organization now, Wisconsin Faithful. And by the way, friends, check it out, wisconsinfaithful.org is the website, and learn more about the work that Jelaine's in, but her fingerprints are not off Wisconsin Family Council, very much engaged in the work that's going on, and the two of you also are doing Homefront together, which airs on WVCY Radio every Thursday afternoon at 3:15 as well.
Yeah, and it's been a great opportunity to talk to your listeners on VCY Radio, and it's just a great opportunity to really encourage Christians around our state to be engaged this election cycle.
Sam, you are Legislative Director for Wisconsin Family Action. Tell us a little about yourself.
Yeah, so I just started at Wisconsin Family Action a little under 6 months ago, back in June of this year. So it's kind of been a whirlwind of learning new experiences. Before that, I spent 5 years working in the state legislature, working for Senator Chris Kapenga. And before that, I was a policy advisor to Governor Scott Walker during his second term. So as a legislative director, I have been working very hard to make relationships with our elected representatives, and that's my primary responsibility, is take Wisconsin Family Action's mission and vision and communicate that to legislators in the Capitol.
And this is something, you're no stranger to legislation, you're no stranger to how the process works, and this is one of the key areas you're going to be looking at, is what legislation is coming forward here, and how does this impact the family? How does this impact marriage? How does this impact religious liberty?
Exactly. In each legislative session, there's usually about 1,000 bills that are introduced, and it's amazing how many of those intersect with issues of marriage, religious liberty, life, and all those things that we hold dear to our organization. So we'll be paying very close attention, and I look forward to the opportunity in January to be talking with legislators both about things that they're working on, also ideas that we're going to have to bring family values to Wisconsin.
Right. Well, it's good to have you both here with us here tonight. And we got a very critical election coming up just 1 week away, and that is the election day, November 5th. We've been talking about it a long time, and I'd like each of you to discuss from your perspective how critical is this election. Daniel?
Yeah, I would say this is definitely one of the most critical elections of our lifetime. We are at a crossroads, as you had mentioned before. As a nation, we really have the opportunity to head down one direction or to really go another direction. As we look at these issues of life, family, and religious liberty, it is absolutely essential for Christians to be engaged this election. I had a friend from another state that leads an organization like Wisconsin Family Council just shared a recent video that came out where a presidential candidate even said that her response to religious exemptions for abortion providers should be done away with. And so this is not just an issue on the issue of life, but for religious liberty. It is an important election for Christians to be involved in.
It really is. How do you see things, Sam?
I'd like to drill down further into the state legislative races. I think this will be the closest in terms of who controls the legislature for the first time probably in over a decade of really seeing which party is going to control the state legislature, both in the Assembly and the Senate. And that's going to have massive consequences going forward into the rest of this decade because of, as you mentioned, the issues of life, religious liberty are very much on the table like I don't think they've ever been, at least in my lifetime.
You know, it's interesting. Some almost look at the makeup of the legislature and what has happened with the redistricting and almost sees it as some kind of a legislative coup by our Wisconsin Supreme Court.
I don't know if there's a better way to put that. I think there was, especially this past year, there was a lot of coordination by both the governor and the Supreme Court to press these maps on the people, and I think it was more of a, like you said, a coup rather than a actual choice that was warranted. So I think that's put a lot of pressure on people on, like I said, ways I haven't seen before.
Yeah, indeed. Well, friends, there is much at stake in this election, and just to highlight that just a bit further, Ben Carson was a member of President Trump's cabinet, former President Trump's cabinet, and he spoke just recently, and I want to just play a video clip, and we're going to come back and discuss what he had to say. Let's go right now to videotape here and catch Ben Carson.
This election is not about Democrats and Republicans. This election is about whether we are a secular nation or are we one nation under God. And you know, it was a long time ago, but Benjamin Franklin, when he came out of that Constitution Hall after vigorous arguments over how our nation was going to be run, he was asked, "Sir, what do we have here? A monarchy or a republic?" And he said, "A republic, if you can keep it." We've kept it for 240 years, but we're as close to losing it right now as we have ever been at any point in time. We have a Department of Justice that's being used by the party in power to persecute and prosecute their political opponents, something you would expect in Russia or China or Banana Republic, occurring blatantly right in our country. And interestingly enough, we have somebody who's running for president who recently said in a crowd when somebody said, "Jesus Christ is Lord," that you're in the wrong crowd. Think about that. You know, in Matthew 12:34, it says, "Out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaketh." She didn't have time to think about what she was going to say. She just said what's in her heart. So maybe she's the one who doesn't belong. Maybe that's what we should be thinking about.
So we just saw what Ben Carson had to say just recently, and I'd like to get your reaction to this. He just said, this election will determine whether we are a secular nation or one nation under God.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a critical election, and I think it's very telling of where candidates are placing themselves for trying to get votes. It's very clear watching that video and even seeing both of the exchanges that he was referring to that there are candidates that are saying we want Christian voters, and there are other candidates who are saying Christian voters do not have a home here. And so it's very important for Christians to be educated, to look into the issues, but also to make sure that we're choosing well by voting biblically, prayerfully and carefully for this election.
Indeed. He also said, Sam, he said, talked about the Benjamin Franklin quote, when he's leaving, what do we have? He was asked the question, do we have a monarchy or do we have a republic? And he said, a republic if you can keep it. Carson said, we're close to losing it.
Yeah, I think that's a really big concern in terms of the republic that we know and love is teetering on the edge of what will this country be like? What will the next 4 years look like in terms of national scale? I have great concerns with the candidates, where they stand on certain issues, because it puts our country at jeopardy, not just for elections, but for life and religious liberty. There's a number of people that want to push Christians out of the public square completely. And I think that's just shocking, especially because I just read a quote recently. Barack Obama, back in 2006, referred to Christians in the public square and was saying they need to be there, to now just a short time, a little more than a decade over now, and now it's like we're pushing Christians completely out of the public square. There's no home for you here.
Well, and isn't that what he just referenced too about Kamala Harris at a recent rally? And he talked about a person who shouted out, Jesus Christ is Lord, and she looked and says, you're at the wrong rally, and said, you should be in that smaller rally down the street here. That is really pushing Christians out of the public square.
Correct. It's pushing them out of the square, and it's like saying there's no home for you here.
Right.
And that pushes you to a different home, I guess, from other people's perspective.
That pretty alarming clip.
Yeah, and I would say too, Jim, what's interesting is, yes, this did happen in Wisconsin. This is federal level politics, but this is what we're seeing at the state level and even the local level here in Wisconsin as well. There's situations where we've had opportunities to really be able to have pastors that can be a partner in communities, to bring them together, to meet with these representatives at the state level. And we've had state legislative leaders that have said, you know what, if you believe in God, if you believe in a pro-life ethic, if you believe in a pro-family ethic, we won't even meet with you or have the conversation, because you need to have our radical stance on abortion and transgender ideology.
Yeah. And the other thing I would quickly point out is that he said, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaketh. And indeed, those were the first words out of Kamala Harris's mouth, whereas J.D. Vance was speaking and somebody yelled out, Jesus Christ is King. And without a moment's hesitation, he said, yes, Jesus Christ is King. And very interesting comment there. And wanted to point that out. But he also talked about the Department of Justice being used today to persecute and to prosecute.
Yeah, it's a huge concern. We've seen that at the federal level, and we're even starting to see that at the state level. I just think of it's been national news recently in Wausau, where there was a mayor who said, I'm going to remove an unsecured ballot box, put it in the city hall just to make sure that it would be secured to later be put out. And now the state Wisconsin Department of Justice is going after, they've raided his home even. Yeah. And so we're seeing the Department of Justice being used at the federal and even the state level to make, especially, it's purely political sort of prosecutions we see from this.
So friends, we've got a very critical election coming up on November 5, and there's several things we want to point out on this. Yes, many of us are familiar with the top of the ticket, so to speak, and that is voting for President of the United States. We also have that we're replacing U.S. Senator for the state of Wisconsin as well.
Yeah, there'll be another important election for U.S. Senate. We have Democrat Tammy Baldwin, who has been in the legislature in Congress as long as I've been alive. And then you have Eric Hovde, the challenger, the Republican. And we see very similar sort of issues at the federal level that are also making an impact here at the state level.
And every congressional seat as well?
Every congressional seat. So in Wisconsin, we have 8 congressional seats. Those will all be on the ballot. There are specifically 2 seats that are going to be very important, and we're watching in the Green Bay area. There's a very important election for Congress. It's an open seat, but one of the candidates running is an actual abortion doctor who performs abortions in the state of Minnesota. And we want to make sure that we do not have abortion providers in Congress.
Wow, very interesting. You're also watching Southwest Wisconsin as well.
Yep, the Southwest Wisconsin seat is going to be a very close seat, and we're going to make sure that we get each and every Christian we cannot get out to vote, to make sure that we have candidates that will lessen evil. So
friends, okay, so we're talking about voting for President of the United States, and that's what we're, ad nauseum, we're seeing ads on television, radio, at print, whatever it may be, the flyers that come to your doors. We also have, again, a U.S. Senate seat that we are electing in the state of Wisconsin. Every congressional seat in Wisconsin is up for election. And Sam, I know you're watching with great interest what's going to happen in our state legislature, and we need to point out that every one of our 99 seats in the state legislature legislature and 1/2 of our Senate are being elected.
Yep, that's correct. It's 99 seats plus, I think, 16 or 17 elections for the Senate. It's a lot to keep track of. We have some voter guide resources actually to help people with that. iVoterGuide.com, which is really helpful to keep track of all the
You
races
said that fast. We're
going
going to slow that down just a little bit.
iVoterGuide.com. It helps you discern who would be a conservative, liberal, or anywhere in between. Really gives you straightforward information that helps you narrow down all those candidates and actually make wise, godly decisions on those. With those races, like I said there earlier, there are some really very, very tight races, both in all across the state, really, specifically in southeast Wisconsin as well. There are some races that they will determine whether or not the Republicans or Democrats will control the legislature. I'm going to say it again, whether Democrats or Republicans control the legislature, those few races will be the determining factor. And even within those races, it could be a difference of 100, 200, or 300 votes.
And in this year already, there have been a number, as you look at the vast majority landscape across the country, there have been a number of tied votes already in this country in different elections, or those have won by a single vote. We can't underestimate the power of one vote.
Exactly, and I'll point to our neighbors in Minnesota. So they had a 1-seat majority in their state Senate that just flipped over a few years ago. And through that 1-seat majority, they were able to pass a trans refuge bill. They passed abortion up to the time of birth. They removed religious protections from Christians who are practicing in the public square. They said, oh, you have faith in God? That doesn't play into what you're doing as a business. So those are definitely much on the table with just a 1-seat vote. Can be the difference between that kind of state or a state that we have currently.
Friends, you're watching a special inFocus program and talking about the necessity of your being informed. That's where it starts, being informed, and really considering where do the candidates stand on various issues. So you're doing evaluation there and prayerfully considering, God, how would you have me cast my vote? Your vote is a stewardship that you have, that you're accountable for before God. There is also on everybody's ballot, statewide, a referenda question. And I'm going to read this question, and then we'll have you respond as to what a yes vote means and what a no vote means, because sometimes things get kind of mixed up, and people see that they've been accustomed to trick questions being on the ballot. So here's what this referendum says. State of Wisconsin eligibility to vote referendum. And you vote either, it's going to be yes or no. Eligibility to vote. Shall Section 1 of Article 3 of the Constitution, which deals with suffrage, be amended to provide that only a United States citizen age 18 or older who resides in an election district may vote in an election for national, state, or local office at a statewide or local referendum? Yes or no? Key words here are only a U.S. citizen. Yes or no? What does a yes vote mean? Danielle, what does a no vote mean?
Yeah, so just kind of a quick overview. So a yes vote would mean that you want to change to amend the Constitution. Some people might wonder, well, why would we change the Constitution? In Wisconsin, we've amended the Constitution over 100 times through this process, so it's nothing new. But it's just saying that instead of every citizen may vote, that only citizens may vote. And someone may ask, why is this important? So in states like California or in Maryland, there are some places where they have said that they want non-citizens to vote, whether that be a legal person that's here legally or even illegally voting, especially in local elections. And so what happened was when that went to the courts in those states, the courts said that because the Constitution didn't clarify that only U.S. citizens could vote, that it was only that U.S. citizens could vote. So we are very thankful that the legislature said we need to bring this to the people, where a yes vote means that we are going to make it so that only citizens can vote and so that non-citizens cannot vote. A no vote means we want to keep the status quo, which would allow for municipalities like the city of Milwaukee or the city of Madison to allow non-citizens to vote, especially in local elections.
Okay, so a yes vote is what I've observed is that conservatives and the Republican Party has been backing a yes vote, and more of those on the liberal bent, the Democratic Party, have been looking for a no vote. Is that how we're seeing it?
Yep, that's correct. I think I looked at Maryland as an example, to Daniel's point. Maryland has the exact same phraseology in their constitution. Every U.S. citizen can vote. They've had a number of municipalities in their state allow non-citizens to vote. And for various reasons, the Democrats have supported that position. while Republicans have supported the longstanding tradition that only U.S. citizens would vote in an election.
And so I've seen the rhetoric that has come out from some groups that said, no, we're just heaping insult upon injury. It is all, already it's not possible for people who are non-citizens to vote, and this is just insulting them even further if we would pass something like this. How do you respond to that?
Well, I would go back to the Maryland example. If it's not possible now, why is it happening? So I guess until they respond to that, I would be confused as to how they think that it's not possible. Because if it's happening and it's been recorded in half a dozen states at least, I'll take Oregon as an example as well. Their Department of Motor Vehicles registered over 1,200 non-citizens to vote, and they just caught it, I think, this past summer. So it's happening.
Yeah.
So I think it's something that has to be addressed.
So. Go ahead.
Oh, and I would even argue that it's not even necessarily a conservative versus liberal position, but the polling that we've seen as an organization, it's most moderates and even most people who tend to be liberal would say that, yes, only U.S. citizens should vote. It's more of a very extreme position to say that non-citizens should be able to vote.
Very interesting. Well, that question is going to be on everybody's ballot across the state of Wisconsin. Now, in addition to that, there's a number of little ballots, or referendum, not little by size of dollars that are being requested, but there are many school districts across this state that have referenda questions as well.
Yeah, there's tons of different referendum questions at our office. We get phone calls all the time of people asking about how to handle, whether it be for a police budget or it be for a city budget or county budget or even for that local school district referendum. So we encourage you to go talk to those people that are asking the referendum, whether it be the school board or even that city council, and ask them the reasons why behind they're having a referendum if it's in your community. And if you're not sure if you have a referendum, you can find a sample ballot at myvote.wi.gov.
And friends, let me echo what Daniel has just said here. That website is so very important to see your sample ballot, because you may have things that certainly we're not talking about. We've talked about the main things that will be on everybody's ballot, but go to that website, myvote.wi.gov. When you get there, you're going to put in your address, and then you click that and you can find out what's on my ballot. You see a little blue button there, what's on my ballot. You click on that and then you'll see your sample ballot for your household. You can also go there to register to vote. We'll talk about that here in just a moment, but also early voting is underway right now here in the state of Wisconsin. And it really, the parameters change community by community. Some are having Saturday and Sunday voting and into the evening voting. Others are saying, no, it's just Monday through Friday. So this website, myvote.wi.gov, also finds out, you learn about early voting. Sam, how important is early voting?
Early voting is really important. I think of people who are traveling, or they might have something unforeseen on election day, like a sickness, like a school recital or a game. There's a million different reasons why you might not vote on election day. Banking your vote early on an early vote is extremely important to both parties. They've invested a massive amount of money into making sure that people that support, whether Republican or Democrat candidate, to make sure that that vote is counted as early as possible.
And I know, Daniel, that there are those who will, the unexpected happens on election day, it seems, or weather turns grossly bad, or we see what happened in Oklahoma recently, in which in Oklahoma they found Islamic terrorists who are actually going to interrupt election day. And if all of a sudden somebody gets wind, they're having problems at the voting, people say, I'm not going to go down there.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's important for us to make sure we bank our votes now. One of the things about myself, I'm a huge avid Packers fan, and I love the Packers, season ticket holder and owner. And I think through that analogy is what we can look at voting as well. And right now, today, we are in quarter 3 of the game. We need people to vote. We need people to score points in quarter 1 and quarter 2. But we need people to score and get points by voting in quarter 3 as well as quarter 4. So it needs to be all of the process and not just one day. And even just my own personal life, I've seen where November 2020, I had COVID on election day. Now, I was one of those people that said, I'm going to make sure that I vote, and there's ways to do it. Even if you are sick, you still can vote by having someone from the clerk's team come out to your vehicle to vote. But most people would say, you know what, I'm sick, I can't make it.
Yeah.
And so this is a great way to make sure we can get Christians to vote.
Yeah, and again, I just compare, I know like in the city of Milwaukee, they are having Saturday voting. They are having Sunday voting taking place. Even the Sunday right before the election, they are having voting take place. And to find out, and I've been asked that question, how do I learn that information? But that website really has that as well.
Yeah, myvote.gov is really important. I would also encourage reaching out to your local clerk. They are the ones who help run the elections, and they obviously know all the details that go along with that. The times that they're available, even the location, sometimes vary from your usual polling place. So I would highly encourage people to reach out to your local clerk. They have great information. They're great servants of the community, and they would be more than happy to talk to you about that.
Okay, very, very important. And again, the candidate information, you mentioned another website.
Yes, ivoterguide.com.
Okay.
Or you can always call Wisconsin Family Action. We're more than happy to talk to you about candidates that are on your ballot as well.
Okay. And we'll be giving you some contact info, at least for Wisconsin Family Council. I know that we'll talk with each other and get that the information there. But a very critical election that's before us here at this time. Early voting is underway. You've got a website. You don't have to be in ignorance. There's a lot of information, Daniel, that's available. But now, as early voting is going on, really critical to really take that step.
Yeah, it's absolutely essential that we get Christians to vote. And I just think of my own example, my own local church. And so there was a study that came out recently that suggested that 32 million Christians are going to miss this election. These are self-identified, but also theologically, they check the boxes for believing what we believe as Christians. And they also attend they regularly attend church weekly at Bible-believing churches. And I just think of my own story at our church. We used to lead a young adults ministry, and this August election that we had, only 20% of our people voted because life got busy, things were hectic.
Yeah.
And so that's where we really need to encourage Christians, especially those that have families, those that are working full-time, make sure that they vote early so that they can lock in that vote.
And what if somebody's not registered? What do we do?
Yeah. In Wisconsin, it's great. You can register to vote at the polls the day of the election, or even if you go early vote, you can register to vote there. What you need to do is you need to prove that you've lived in your area for at least 28 days or lived in your where you currently live for at least 28 days. You need to provide a photo ID, but then you also need to be able to provide something like whether it's a utility bill or a bank statement, something that shows this is actually your address. But it's very easy to get registered to vote here in Wisconsin.
And again, going to the myvote.wi.gov website also has all that information. Tells you where your polling place is. You put in your address. Where do you vote early? What is your polling place on election day? Are you registered? How to register? I mean, it's all right there. It's a wonderful tool that we have in Wisconsin, and certainly you can make use of that tool at myvote.wi.gov. Very, very important. Well, I want to thank you both for coming in here today, and we're going to have you next week as well on the program on election eve, and just to share the importance of getting engaged in the process. So, Sam, thanks for being with us. Daniel, thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
And friends, you can reach out to Wisconsin Family Council, their website, wifamilycouncil.org. wifamilycouncil.org. If you need to give them a call, you can do so 1-888-378-7395. 1-888-378-7395. But friends, today is a day really to make your commitment, okay? You've got this time right now. Election day is just a week away, and take time to learn about the candidates and prayerfully consider your vote. But don't let this stewardship be squandered that you have. Really, we have the right, we have the responsibility, and that stewardship before God. Thanks for watching us here tonight on inFocus.